Easter egg right here. Oh, we have a guess I'll die meme right there. And we're going to see how that will apply to today's lesson later today. English is hard. Yep. So now for starter class, remember to watch your CNN 10 and also to finish your Good News Friday article by midnight tonight. All right. And also, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. All right. Now today's mini lesson right here is going to be feudalism and why it sucked for a vast majority of the people. All right. And then with workshop, remember to finish your week 3 online packet. That is due tonight. And hopefully you should be able to get that done as soon as you are done with this video. All right. So today's goals right here, hopefully by the end of today, you can define what feudalism is. And then also you could explain how the feudalism system was ineffective or why did it not work for the vast majority of people. All right. Where are we going to go? Hey, there we go. My computer's a little slow today. So that's it. We've talked about feudalism before. And we actually talked about it when we talked about our China section. All right. So that's why I don't blame if you guys don't remember, but we're just going to go a little review and then we're going to dive in depth on what medieval feudalism looked like. All right. So that's why here's the definition. I'm going to go over it here in a second. But before I do, I just want to go over a couple things first. One, Western Roman Empire. We talked about this on Monday. This is going to become medieval Europe. This is your knights, your lords, your castles and stuff like that. This is what Western Europe looks like right here. Eastern Roman Empire, this stays strong for another 1,000 years. But this one right here, as soon as Rome fell, good old feudalism started taking hold. All right. And we call this era the medieval age right here. This is what we went over yesterday. The reason is because this is smack in the middle because you have the modern and contemporary age immediately right after. So that's why we have the medieval age right here. And this is also sometimes known as the Dark Ages. All right. And I'm going to get into a little bit why later on, why is it known as the Dark Ages. So with feudalism, it's an economic system where a lord grants a fief. A fief, if you're wondering, is just land that is owned by the lord to a vassal in exchange for military service. All right. So that's why he'll essentially rent out land in exchange for military service. Hey, I'll give you this parcel of land if you will fight for me, when the time arises. All right. So if you guys are wondering what a vassal is, I will be getting to that on the next slide. But here's what a fief is. This is just the legit land that people are working and living on. All right. It's just a parcel, just a part of it. So here are some things you will need to know. All right. So we're going to first talk about the king. When we talk about the social hierarchy, the pyramid, you can say, of feudalism, the king or the queen is always on top because they are the ones who technically own all the land. It is their country or territory. So what they will do is they'll grant a large swath or a large portion of their land to a lord in exchange for his military service. So that's why I say if King Henry has a lord named Lord Calvert, he'll give Lord Calvert a good chunk of land, which usually is around 60 miles or whatnot. It's all right, here is your land for you. You can rule and govern this as you please. The only thing though is I ask him for return is that you and your knights will come to my aid whenever I go to war or to battle, which was often quite frequent during the Dark Ages. All right. So that's why and then we get down to the Lord. The Lord grants part of his land to a knight in exchange for military service. All right. So that's why he'll go over to the knight. He'll be hey, whoever's being trained, usually it was someone in his family, hey, I'll give you a part of my land. You can rule and govern that part of my land in exchange for you coming to my military aid whenever I go to war or get called to war. Yep. So that's it. And then we're working our way down. And then the knight, he's the man who runs a small section of the lord's land, all right? He is the one who is in charge of the peasants. Peasants rent part of the knight's land right there. And in return for living on the knight's land, they get protection from the knight. And also they also have to pay the knight. Usually so money wasn't a thing back then. They usually would pay him in food, in cattle, or in some sort of way like that. in order to like pay rent to the knight. Because if they did not give part of their food or part of like their earnings, which usually means like stuff like goods traded for, they will usually get kicked off, or the knight would either like torch the peasants like part of the land, or he would just like kick the peasant off of his land and be like, hey, you're now homeless. I'm going to give your portion of the land to someone who will actually work it. So, and now we get to the vassal. We talked about vassals like in the previous slide before, and a vassal just means someone who serves the class above them. All right, so an example, the lord, he is a vassal to the king. The lord, like, while he does have a lot of power, the king is the one who has the ultimate power. All right, so that's why whenever the king says something, the lord agrees, he obeys, and like he listens to the king. All right, and so that's what another one would be, like a peasant. The peasant is technically a vassal to the knight. He's the one who talks directly to the knight. Usually peasants do not interact with their lords because lowborns didn't like associate with the higher ups. And so that's why the peasants would be one who are like talk to the knights. They would go to the knights to receive protection, and they would also be the one who are paying their taxes and giving like whether like it's their crops or whether it's their like sheep and goats or cattle to the knight in exchange for protection. All right. So that's what a vassal is. So for my more like visual learners right here, let's see if I can figure this out. Nice. All right. So what you need to know is like the king. I'm going to just write a K up here. Your king is on top right here. He is the very top of the food chain. Your lord is directly below him, but he has a big swath of the land. All right, and he's in charge of all the knights who end up running his land. All the knights report directly to him. Your knights, your guys in shining armor right here, they are directly below. I was going to put a KN right there. And then the vast majority of your people are peasants. All right, peasants are the ones who get caught up in like the social and like basically their lives are like, hey, we're tied to the land. And if the knight kicks us off, we're homeless and we don't know really how to survive. All right. So that's why, like, and as far as vassals, remember, like, people who are vassals, they serve the class directly above them. So a peasant is a vassal to the knight. The knight is a vassal to a lord. He serves and he listens to the lord. The lord, he is a vassal to the king. All right. Hopefully that makes sense if you weren't able to, like, just read it straight down. Hopefully this drawing makes a little more sense for you. All right. Oh, and also, hint, if you are working on your like worksheet packet right now, this would be a good time to pause. All right, and fill out like your pyramid section of the worksheet packet. All right. I'm gonna erase this right here, and then we are gonna move on to the next slide. All right. So that's why we're going to go in now as far as like what are some of the disadvantages of feudalism, and basically like what are some of the major problems with feudalism right here. All right. As soon as this loads up, I'll get you guys up and going. Maybe, possibly. Awesome. All right. So that's like problem number one of feudalism. It was a constant state of warfare. There was wars happening. Your peasants are always like, oh great, there's another war happening. All right. So that's why disputes like usually happen between lords. Not a lot of them happen between kings because the kings had to organize and get all the lords and their armies together. So that's why one example right here would be like disputes over land, like as far as like, hey, how far does my land extend? And then if you see peasants from like each other lords like crossing over, like, hey, you're not supposed to be here. And it'll cause like mini wars in between each other. And then I wish I was joking about this, but I'm not. And then like legitimately offending the honor of one's family. So that's why if you had lords and like they basically like insulted or they like made one's family just like dishonorable, they would like end up being like, hey, that is grounds for war. We're going to assemble our troops. We're going to march over and try to take your land. So that's why like warfare was constantly happening, which also like, it was also a big reason why the death rate or like how long you would live was not that high. All right. So that's the average like age that you would die back then was 33, which compare it to today, which is like almost like in this is like high 70s. Now, and also here's problem number 2. Kings were way too reliant on their nobles. All right. And I got a picture here to show you why they're way too reliant. So I got this picture right here. This is the Holy Roman Empire. So it was neither Holy or Roman, but like that's a topic we'll discuss for another day. See all these colors? Those are all the different like lands that lords own in the Holy Roman Empire. So that's all like, do you know how many lords a king has to take track or keep track of? And also like if he has to settle a dispute between one and another lord, it'll take him like months to travel over. And they'd be like, all right, what's going on? And also, if the king of the Holy Roman Empire wanted to declare war on like a neighboring country, him trying to get all the other lords organized into one area so they can all march and declare war would sometimes be almost from like an 8 month to a year process just for that to happen. And that's if all the lords agree with him. All right. So that's why like the kings, like while they ruled like in name and in title, the lords are the ones who held the majority of the power. They basically were just like small little kingdoms right there. Now, and then also our third problem, we have a land-based economy, which is not a great thing because like basically your sign of wealth, unlike in America where like your sign of wealth is how much money you have, here it's like money is not a thing. So that's why like once the Dark Ages happened, like there was no reading and writing except for like the elite highborn. And also just kind of like there's really no towns because everyone just became a farmer who wasn't a knight or a lord, was some sort of farmer or a shepherd on the lord's land. All right. So that's why people resorted way back to trading and bartering. We're going backwards in society. We're not advancing. We're actually going down. So that's why people only traded for necessities. It'd be like, hey, you got 2 cows. I'll give you like 15 chickens for your 2 cows. What do you say? And that was essentially your bartering. It's like, oh, I got this new like backhoe thing to like help me like dig my trenches for like farming. I will trade you 6 chickens for that. What do you say? That was essentially your trading. There was no medium or way to like really save up wealth. All right. Because one, like if you were a peasant, you're required to give half of it to your knight and to your lord. So that's why like there was really no way to like earn wealth or possibly move up in society, which leads me to like the final one right here. Your future is determined by your birth, which as a poor peasant, life was essentially this. I'm quoting this from my like 7th grade history teacher. Life was short, it sucked, and you died. That's essentially it right there. So that's why it is almost impossible for you to move up in society. Because one, you're not able to like keep or like save up like cattle and stuff like that because half of it's getting taken away. Or if a neighboring lord ended up invading like your land, he'd be taking away all your goods and all your services and stuff like that. So that's why you'd be left with nothing. So that's why, and also people who were lords, they were like in some weird way, like they were related to the king. Even if it's like the second cousin to the king, you had some sort of nobility and title. All right. And knights were usually like either relatives or sons of lords. All right. That's like pretty much the only way you could get in is if you were born in or you somehow married up, which usually did not happen. So that's why, like, if you're a peasant, life was not great for you. You had really no chance of moving up, which leads me into actually my daily recommendation right here. So that's why, like, I don't know if you guys seen The Knight's Tale. It's with Heath Ledger, but it is about like a peasant who does try to become a knight. So that's why, like, it's a hilarious and like really funny film. It's kind of like Monty Python. So that's why if you guys do want to watch or need a good movie to watch during quarantine, this is one right here. All right. And then this is kind of like short, just kind of like my history teacher said. You get an infection, or if you're a peasant, you just might as well be like, well, I guess I'll die. So with that being said, hopefully by the end of this lesson, you can define what feudalism is, and you can explain how the feudalism system was not good for the vast majority of people. Unless you were a lord or a king or related to the king, life was not very fun for you. All right? So that's why, that being said, hey, remember before you enjoy this weekend, get done your worksheet packet, your CNN 10, and your Good News Friday article. All right? Other than that, I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thanks for listening, y'all.